back to Black Talk Today podcast, and I'm your host, Troy. In this particular podcast, I would like to discuss the shooting of Officer Jason Raynor by Othal Wallace. It's been an incident that's being highly covered right now all across social media, of course. A lot of opinions and are being levied in both directions on the side of law enforcement and on the side of Othal Wallace. And I'm going to get into that in this particular podcast and share my thoughts on it. It's very troubling. It's a very unfortunate situation that occurred, of course. But this is where we find ourselves at here in America. Again, I did a podcast the other day discussing how I felt that America's turning into a mental asylum. And reality is constantly being questioned and challenged. And I think folks are really going out of their mind in a lot of instances on different topics and things that occur in this country. And while I don't expect everyone and anyone to agree with me on everything that I say, I'm open to listening to other people's opinions and feelings on every particular matter that goes on here in this nation, regardless of how divisive it is, regardless of the race, the religion of the individual that may be affected by it. I think freedom of speech has to be protected in this nation. And I say that at the end of every podcast, protect my right to freedom of speech, and I'll do the same. But there's been this narrative that's been put out there that as Black people, we're all monolithic people. We all think the same. We all feel the same, and we can't have difference of opinion, or we just going to clash. And typically that's what's been going on. At least I've noticed that, especially in the YouTube realm of things, on the Black sector, some call it, of YouTube. You got to go with the wave. If you don't go with the wave, then you're going to be considered an outsider. You're going to be considered a race traitor, and you're not representing your race. And I don't subscribe to any of that. I believe in telling the truth, and regardless of who it benefits. Malcolm X taught me that. And in this Othal Wallace shooting, I have to speak truthful. And those that are listening should expect me to speak truthful, because that's all I've done here on my podcast. That's all I've done on my YouTube channel and other sources of social media realms that I frequent. I saw the video, and I'm sure if you're listening now at this point and you've heard about the shooting, I'm sure you saw the video of the exchange that Officer Jason Raynor had with Othal Wallace prior to the actual shooting. And I typically don't speak on a lot of things if I don't know factually exactly what happened, right? If I can't deduce and tell you exactly what's been reported and what's been shared, then I'm just not going to fabricate and make up any story that suits my narrative. There's a lot of folks that are really disingenuous that are on social media that just want to create a narrative. And that's not what I do here. There's a lot of people within my race that want to play the victim, that always want to side on the side of not being accountable for their actions. And I'm not siding with that either. I don't respect that. When you're an adult, you should be accountable for all your actions, or you at least should expect it to. But when you hold folks accountable that look like me most of the time in these communities, that's something that they just refuse to do most of the time. Othal Wallace attempted to murder Officer Jason Raynor, without a doubt. That's a fact. That's not me adding any hyperbole, or I'm not adding anything extra that isn't true to that statement in itself. Officer Raynor is in a hospital right now fighting for his life for doing his job, being a police officer. No officer wakes up in the morning and thinks that, hey, this might be the final day that I live, or that I possibly will have my life taken from me. But we all know that's an inherent risk that comes with doing the job and the part of the duty. But this man was shot in the head. And I'm looking at Twitter. I'm in, not to say that that's an end all be all for the representation of any group of people, right? Because it's not. But I'm looking at the responses from the black community because I'm black, right? And Othal Wallace is black. And, I'm very solution-centered and solution-based in a lot of my thinking. And a lot of my thinking is constructive in the sense of what I feel we as black people fall short on. And I feel like we need to be more direct and honest with each other. Some people have a palate for it. Some people just don't like the fact that I'm a guy that's going to hold black people accountable. But I see how we're responding to this situation, and I'm disappointed. I'm disgusted. But I'm not surprised. The very same communities were calling for defunding the police. And then my response to that was, well, if you defund the police, well, who's going to protect you? Do you have an alternative option that's going to take control of your community? That's going to respond to your calls, that's going to be your aid when in crisis and when your life is in danger. See, a lot of us act off of emotion in every situation most of the time. It's not a logical response most of the time coming from these communities. It's an emotional response. And most of the time, the loudest responses coming from our communities are coming from the women in these communities. It's not coming from the men. Because black communities are not led by black men, they're led by black women. And if you know me, you know that I'm in opposition of that. No community is led by their women. Here on earth, you'll find no nation led by their women. It just doesn't happen, but it happens here. And I think that it's been a failure of black men to allow that to be the consensus in the way that our community functions. But yet and still it does. There's a woman that goes by the name of Michi X on YouTube. She has about 60,000 subscribers to her channel. And I was subscribed to her channel at one point in time. And then I wanted to hear her take. And I heard her take on this situation. And again, I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed. I wasn't solely just disappointed in her, but I was disappointed in the followers. You shouldn't speak on facts or speak on things that you have no understanding of. That's just generally how I feel. If I don't have a general grasp of any topic or anything that I'm speaking on, I need to do the research on it prior to speaking on it. That's just generally what I think anyone that's disseminating any information on YouTube that's looking to engage with people should do, right? It's just the respectable adult thing to do. But I see that respectability is not what's respected. and it's not wanted and needed. And honesty. This woman went on for close to an hour defending everything Othal Wallace did that day. Even to the extent of fabricating that the officer was responding in an aggressive manner, was threatening Othal Wallace's life, in which the body camera footage of Officer Raynor is available, at least the snippet of the footage that at least I've seen, and unless there's more footage that has been released I don't know of, but I've seen footage that has been released by the major news networks and in the media. And I didn't see that. I didn't see an officer, looking to take a black man's life. I didn't see an officer harassing anyone. I didn't see an officer doing anything outside of the bounds of their duty to do, in which they would do to any and every citizen. But for whatever reason, this woman was able to pervert everything. And it's troubling because while she has 60,000 subscribers listening to her, that's 60,000 minds that can be influenced. And then those 60,000 minds then influence others. And then this is how the ignorance continues to perpetuate in the community. This is how the disrespect for the law enforcement that are serving you in your community continues to be a topic of adversarial conversation of the day, every day, and on and on and on. And the narrative never changes. The back and forth between this community and law enforcement continues to go on. And then when things occur, we can't sit and have an adult, meaningful, constructive conversation about any incident that occurs because our emotions are on 10. Our disdain is on 10. What happened to just complying with the law? What happened to that? Why isn't that something that we just can't do as black people? I know a lot of us do it. I'm not saying, and I'm not going to sit here and make a general statement and make it seem as if all black people just are inherently disobedient or just cannot comply with the general law and structure that we live here under, that everybody live here under in this nation. Because no, that's not true. But in these communities, right? Why is there such a beef or disdain for just civil obedience? Officer Jason Raynor asked Othal Wallace several times to sit in your car, while Othal Wallace did not acknowledge any of his commands. Jason Raynor asked Othal Wallace, does he live in this apartment complex? Othal Wallace still did not give him a response. So, where does the accountability come in that Othal Wallace have to acknowledge and be responsible for? When do black men and black women have to take accountability for their actions, especially when they're encountering law enforcement? I mean, listen, there's a lot of accusations that are made time and time again about how police black people, they're racially profiling, and not to say that there weren't incidents and situations where that does happen. But to make it seem like that's every black person experience, I just can't get behind that. That's not my experience. That's not my day-to-day interaction with law enforcement or whenever I encounter law enforcement. I'm going to be honest, I've never had an unfavorable encounter with law enforcement. I'm from those very same communities. While I no longer reside in those communities, I grew up in those communities. So wouldn't one think that, well, wouldn't I then act in accordance with the way these folks in these communities continue to act today? No. You know what happened? I took responsibility for myself, and I wanted better for myself. I didn't want to be a statistic. I saw what was going around in these communities, and I no longer wanted to be a part of these communities because it was nothing beneficial for me. So I removed myself from a situation that was destructive for me. And once I became an adult, I never looked back. I put myself around different people of different cultures, different races, different ideals and beliefs. I didn't make bad decisions in my life where I couldn't do that. I always thought progressively and thought about tomorrow, how I can better myself, how opportunities are readily there, available, waiting for me. I just got to step through the door to get to them. And regardless of how hard it is to get to those opportunities, I'm not going to stop. That's what drove me. Not me laying the blame to why I'm black in America and why I'm living in the ghetto and why things are so hard against me and how it's everyone else's fault. That was never my plight. That was never my stance. Blaming another race of people today as a grown man where I'm at today would be counterproductive to the meaning of being a man. When you're blaming another man for why you don't have what you have, why you live the way you live, why your mentality is the way that it is, someone else have that much control over you, that never set well with me. I needed to guide my own ship, not follow someone else's ship. But then again, I'm one individual man. Othal Wallace was allegedly involved with a black militia group. And he was apprehended after fleeing the scene. After shooting Jason Raynor in the head, he fled to Atlanta. And he was apprehended apparently at a location where these militia men, this black militia men group would meet up and I don't know, whatever they do. And he was like apprehended like in a treehouse or something like that, like in a high blind. And my thing is like, if you're so involved with being anti-police and you have your own contingency group to be that, where were they? Why didn't they come to your defense? Why didn't they house you and provide aid for you? Why didn't they, up until this particular point, I'm not quite sure. So I'm not sure if they provided any legal aid or financial aid for Mr. Wallace at this point in time. But I see black folks all across the media. Well, he was a Black Panther. He's a part of this black militia group. Well, then when you're a part of a group or entity such as that nature, aren't they supposed to be there to support you and to kind of be a buffer between you and local law enforcement until you figure out exactly what happened? Because now what's going to be claimed is that Othal Wallace feared for his life and this shooting was a matter of self-defense. Well, if it was a matter of self-defense, then why'd you run to a whole nother state if it was actually self-defense? And two, again, where is your clergymen? Where is your militiamen? Where is your minute men? Where are the men or the group that's supposed to stand by your side at this time, especially if you feel that you're not guilty and you're going to be treated unfairly? See, this is the narrative that a lot of folks are running with, that he was justified and he's doing the right thing and he didn't want to become another victim of police brutality and killing. He didn't want to be subjected to, really, in all reality, obeying and abiding to the law and orders of the police. Very simple law and order demands were given to him, which he could not comply and live up to and do and acknowledge. But now we're supposed to hold him in high regard and as what? As someone of honor? I thought what he did was very cowardly. I thought what he did was very weak. I thought what he did was actually very shameful. And if you are a part of any kind of militia, I wouldn't want to be a part of that militia if they're supporting him, because that's not, well, then again, I don't know what the mission statement of the militia that he allegedly was involved with. But normally when you're in a militia, you have some form of principles. You have some form of bounds and guidelines. You don't just senselessly go out and murder people just to murder people or act unjustifiably when it comes to attempting to murder someone because of what? A few civil commands that you clearly couldn't follow? The misinformation that's been disseminated again by Michi X and others across the internet is downright dangerous, because you're influencing a group of people who are very ignorant to the law. And just because you're ignorant to the law doesn't mean that you get to circumvent it. Doesn't mean that you don't get to be ruled under it. When you're an adult, you're an adult. It's your responsibility to then educate yourself on what the law is, regardless of whether you know or not. That's not taught in these communities. I know that for sure because I came from these communities. But people like me, my credibility is on the line apparently in the black race because I question black people. I question the integrity of black people. I hold black people accountable. I ask the questions like, well, why did you do it? What's the point of it? What's the benefit? Those are the things that I ask black people when they do things that are questionable, that are actually counterproductive to benefiting and advancing black people. But it seems like the ad hominem remarks just won't stop. At least that's being levied against me. But I'm not sitting here crying the blues about it because I'm still here, right? It's a shame. Because now you just got justice for, the nation just got justice for the George Floyd shooting, which I felt, the George Floyd killing by Derek Chauvin, which I felt the sentencing was very light. And I kind of felt that Derek Chauvin got off. But we just went through that as a nation, and that's concluded. And now you're rattling the hornet's nest. You're trying to defund the police. You're making it hard for them to do their job. Now you're attempting to take their life, and now you're making mockery of you shooting them. And when I say you, I'm not saying all black people are making mockery of this, because we're not. But when you look at the mass quantity of people that are willing to display their face, display their names, and go on the internet, make video after video justifying what Othal Wallace did, in a sense, you can deduce that that is mockery. And my thing is, what do you think the response from law enforcement is going to be going forward all across the nation now when they're policing black communities? So now when, like the youth like to say, when the cops now turn up and they're on demon time, now when they're not taking the second to give you the credibility or the benefit of the doubt anymore, now when it's foot to the pedal, mash the gas in your community, and it look like they're not giving you the benefit of the doubt, and they're going upside your head, you're going to wonder why this energy is what the energy is now. You're going to wonder why now the stop and frisk is going to be a thing again. You're going to wonder why now cops are not taking chances when they come into your community anymore. Why it's going to seem like it's more like a occupying militia that's policing your streets. You're going to really see the turn up occur, because now your community has no political power because you can't stop anything. You have no voting, you have no understanding of voting. You have no understanding of politics and the way it works. And you have no unity. So now other entities that do not live in your community are now going to be able to control your community the way that they see fit, because now you don't want to be accountable for anyone in your community or the actions of anyone in your community, and you want to rub it in the face of law enforcement by acting as if nothing happened here that was wrong. So now when they turn up on demon time, again, nobody wants to hear you out marching. Because who's marching for Jason Raynor's life right now? Who's speaking up on the behalf of Jason Raynor's family? Who's sending their condolences? No one, right? Let me not say no one, because then I'll be speaking unfairly, because I don't know who's sending their condolences from the black community or anyone from these communities, so I don't want to misspeak on that. But if you just survey the internet, I just don't feel that vibe. I just don't feel that energy. What I notice about these communities, they're always looking for leaders. It's not wrong looking for a leader. It's nothing wrong if you want to be led. But time and time again, you're misled, you're misguided, and you're choosing to remain this way in this state because you don't get off your ass to do nothing to change it other than cry about what everyone's doing to you. This woman goes on social media and puts a battery in y'all back, because there's a lot of black folks that would do that. There's also a lot of black folks that live amongst black people that are not really black. And I said that in one of my last videos on YouTube, that if you want to start to weed out who's for your race and who's not for your race, and you want to, start to really solidify accountability and unity amongst your race, you're going to have to start weeding out the people who are perpetrating the fraud amongst you. But also, you're going to have some race identity. You're going to have to establish that. And what I mean by that, you can't allow anybody and everybody just to claim your race. There's a lot of folks that are mulatto, that aren't 100% black. They're mixed. And I see when it comes to that, and I see it time and time again, those be the most vocalist people that black people typically tend to give the opportunity to lead them. Time and time again. And it be those folks that be mulatto that typically have the most to prove, because they know that they're mixed. And they know that they got to go above and beyond to prove to black folks how black they are. And most of the time, they're going to appeal to your ignorance. They're going to appeal to what you don't know and what they do know. And they know that you're starved for credibility. They know that you're starved for any kind of sensible representation that looks like you. And it may have somebody that out there that may be mixed. My daddy's black, my mama's white, or something of that nature. But in all reality, most of the time, these people don't mean well for you. Most of the time, they're going to play both sides of the aisle when it's convenient for them. Most of the time, they're put in place and positions to get the work done of other groups and other people. And it's been an old game that's been run and played on us that we still haven't picked up and figured out the pieces on how to play the game. Yet and still, it happens over and over again. I don't understand how we have folks that don't look like us, that don't come from our communities, able to speak hatred and drama and destruction, and y'all still follow them and support them. I never understood how there's people on the internet that can be anti-police, but they still call the police themselves. I never understood that. And if you're anti-police, then you're anti-American. Then you ought to leave the country. If you don't like, and listen, if you don't like it here in America, why don't you just leave? If you're not working to make things better here for your group, you're just complaining, or you're adding to the dysfunction, you're adding to the savagery. Why don't you just leave? Marcus Garvey said over 70 years ago, when he was attempting to repatriate African Americans back to Africa, there was a group of black folks in this nation that was against that. And he said, well, I don't want to bring all black people back to Africa, because if you're not shit here in America, what makes you think you're going to be anything worth a damn when we get back to Africa? And I think at the end of the day, there needs to be a weeding out of people who are just not contributing. They're wasteless breathers. They have no say-so, no contributions that are worth having around. They're just there. And it be the folks that are just there that are causing a lot of the issues that we can solve today. You think having a black militia in America does what? We're so behind on everything and every other race in this nation. Now you want to pick up arms and have a militia of what again? When the majority of the males in this nation, a good percentage of them that are highly incarcerated behind bars today are African American, and we're only 11% of the population, but we're choosing to create militias? A lot of our communities are lacking critical thinking skills. A lot of our communities are lacking conflict resolution skills. A lot of our communities can't even co-parent, let alone coexist in the very same communities that we live in with each other and occupy. But we're creating militias? You can't put the cart before the horse. You can't expect the cart to pull the horse. Think about the logic in that. Fundamentally, we're backwards. But the thing about it is everybody else know it. And we act like, it's like I compare it to this. Very simple analogy, right? That any common person can understand. It's like if you're standing in your window of your home, you have no blinds, you have no curtains, and you're naked, but you're standing at your main front entry window, naked. That's what I compare black folks to. We're naked people. We're standing at the main window of our main entry of our home. Everyone else can see that we're naked. But in our minds, we tell ourselves that we're not. And it's a shame that we can't even have a conversation about the basic shit without any of us just coming to the conclusion that, hey, whether we disagree or not, we need to stay on code. What Othal did was not something that we need to stay on code for. He attempted to murder a cop. He should be incarcerated. Charges should be pressed, and he should be where he is right now, waiting trial for his convictions, right? To see what happens, to see what all transpires. Again, all of the facts have not come out yet. But the fact that we all do know and can deduce is that he attempted to murder Jason Raynor. And at this particular moment in time, Jason Raynor is alive, fighting for his life. He has not expired yet. But if he does, this turns into something else. This is a murder case at that point. But we can't go around the internet lying, saying things that make us feel good, because it's very ignorant of us. And when people see it, they choosing not to deal with us. Maybe individually, in pockets, they will. But as a collective group, we're laughed at, we're not respected, and when we congregate in masses, people question it. People question our credibility. People question our intentions. Because if you're going to go by history, when we're amongst ourselves, we're destructive. Imagine how it is when we get amongst other groups of people. No one wants to live amongst us now. My last podcast, I mentioned Buckhead Town in Atlanta, right outside Atlanta. They now want to be their own city. So they're attempting to create a Buckhead city that would be predominantly white. You know why that is? Because crime in Atlanta is at an all-time high. You know who's committing the crimes in Atlanta? Black people. Black youth. So other folks just don't want to deal with the bullshit. The communities don't want to be accountable. The parents that are raising these kids don't want to be accountable. So folks are like, okay, cool. Y'all don't want to be accountable. We'll just create a big ass gate and we'll just keep the animals out. That's how folks are looking at it. And it's going to get to the point where other cities and states will start to adopt the same play. And if you're not ashamed of that, and you're living in these communities, I don't know what you would be ashamed of. But then again, it seems like there's really no shame in the black community anyway. So if you ask me. I mean, folks are literally out here defending this man as if he's done something righteous. As if he's done something righteous. It's a very disturbing state that the race is in. And it seemed like it's not getting any better. It's like a bottomless pit. It's like, how low could you go? Oh, we can go a lot lower. How worse can it get? Oh, it can get a lot worse. So what do? I myself would like to send my prayers out to Officer Jason Raynor and his family. I hope that he has a speedy recovery. He didn't deserve that though. He didn't deserve that. That's not cool. That's not respectable. That's not a man of any character that Othal Wallace, that is. That's not a man of any character that I respect, that I want to be around, that I want to acknowledge as anybody good, because I don't see the good in this situation that he's done. I don't even know the good that he's done in his past. But we'll wait. I'll wait and see what other facts come out, because it hasn't been many, other than the fact that he did shoot this officer in the head and fled the scene to Atlanta. But any other that, we don't know any other facts. We can't substantiate or validate or confirm anything yet, because a lot has not been revealed. And until it's revealed, we can't assume any thing other than what we already know. And I think it's also time that we start calling out people that are doing that. And if the media is doing that and trying to create a firestorm, they need to be called out as well. I'm Troy. This is Black Talk Today. Please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. Follow me on YouTube at Black Talk Today Podcast and at Black Talk Today. If you go to my main page on YouTube, you'll find all of my other channel links. You might find something else that you're into that I do on other channels. I appreciate it. Thank you. Also, you ever heard of something? First Amendment. Protect my right because I protect yours.